I will never forget the pride I felt growing up with my younger brother Jordan. We were inseparable, taking on the world together after Mom passed. But at his engagement dinner, everything changed. I pulled out a card containing a fully paid photographer venue deposit and $5,000 cash. His fiancée Amanda smiled, then whispered loud enough for the table, "Wow, he is really trying to matter again." I slipped the card back into my coat, stood up, and said, "Let me try less." Before I continue this story, leave a comment telling me where you are watching from, and hit like if you have ever felt undervalued by someone you were trying to help. Jordan and I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Portland. After our mother died from cancer when I was 15, and Jordan was just 12, our father did his best, but he worked long hours at the factory to keep food on the table. This left me to step into a role beyond just being an older brother. I made Jordan breakfast before school, helped with his homework, and made sure he never felt completely alone in his grief. During those formative years, we developed a bond that I thought was unbreakable. I remember staying up late helping him with science projects, cheering at his basketball games from the bleachers when Dad had to work overtime, and defending him when neighborhood bullies tried to pick on him. There was nothing I would not do for my little brother. When it came time for college, Jordan got accepted to University of Washington with a partial scholarship. I was already working as an apprentice at a construction company, but I took on 2 additional jobs, waiting tables and doing weekend deliveries to help cover what the scholarship did not. I barely slept those 4 years, but seeing Jordan walk across that graduation stage made every exhausted moment worth it. "You did not have to do all that," Connor Jordan told me after the ceremony, his eyes watery as he hugged me. "I would not be here without you. That is what brothers do," I had replied, not knowing how much those words would come back to haunt me years later. After graduation, Jordan landed a job at a marketing firm in Seattle. He seemed to be thriving, and I was so proud to see him building his own life. We still talked several times a week and met up for dinner whenever he visited Portland. Things were good between us. That is, until Amanda entered the picture. Jordan met Amanda at a company holiday party. She was an account executive who had just transferred from their Chicago office. The first time he mentioned her, I could hear a different tone in his voice, a mixture of infatuation and something I now recognize as insecurity. When I finally met Amanda 3 months later, something felt off from the moment she extended her perfectly manicured hand to shake mine. Her smile never quite reached her eyes as she evaluated everything from my clothes to my job as a construction project manager. "Jordan has told me so much about you," she had said, her tone suggesting he had perhaps said too much. "It must have been so difficult for you having to be the responsible one so young." There was something in her phrasing that suggested she saw my sacrifices for Jordan as burdensome rather than born from love. But I brushed it aside, wanting to support my brother in his new relationship. Over the next year, I watched as Jordan slowly changed. Our phone calls became less frequent. When we did talk, he would drop hints about needing to level up his lifestyle. He moved from his comfortable apartment into a luxury high-rise that I knew he could barely afford. His wardrobe transformed from practical to designer labels overnight. "Amanda says first impressions are everything in this business," he explained when I questioned the sudden changes. "Her family has connections that could really help my career." I tried to be supportive, but I worried about the financial strain these changes were putting on him. Then came the day Jordan called to tell me he was proposing to Amanda. "That is great news," I said, genuinely wanting him to be happy. "Are you sure you are ready? You have only been dating for a little over a year." "Amanda says if we want to book the venue her parents like for next summer, we need to lock it in now," he replied, ignoring my concern about timing. "Plus, her sister got engaged last month, and Amanda does not want a long engagement like they are having." That was the first red flag I could not ignore. But again, I swallowed my reservations. I wanted to mend the growing distance between us, and I thought supporting his engagement might be the way to do it. I decided to give them a gift that would show Jordan how much he still meant to me, how much I still believed in him despite the growing distance between us. Little did I know that this gesture would be the catalyst for exposing the truth about Amanda and ultimately changing both our lives forever. The engagement dinner was held at an upscale restaurant in downtown Seattle that I knew was well beyond Jordan's budget. When I arrived slightly late due to traffic from Portland, I immediately felt underdressed despite wearing my best suit. Amanda's family occupied one end of the long table, all dressed impeccably, while Jordan sat nervously at the head, constantly glancing toward the entrance. When he saw me, relief washed over his face, quickly replaced by something else when Amanda whispered in his ear. He gave me a stiff hug as I approached. "Glad you could make it, Connor," he said, formal, in a way that felt foreign between us. Amanda's greeting was equally stiff. "We were beginning to think you might not show," she said, checking her diamond-studded watch. "We are about to order appetizers." As I settled into my seat, I noticed how Jordan seemed to defer to Amanda on everything from wine selection to conversation topics. Her family dominated the discussion, with talk of country club memberships and vacation properties, occasionally throwing glances my way when I remained quiet. So Connor, Amanda's father, eventually addressed me, swirling his expensive whiskey. "Jordan tells us you work in construction. Must be physical work." The way he said physical made it sound like a disease. "I am a project manager," I clarified. "I oversee residential developments from planning to completion." How interesting, Amanda's mother interjected with a practiced smile that conveyed the opposite. Amanda's cousin tried working with his hands for a while. Thankfully, he came to his senses and went to law school. I nodded politely, biting back the retort that my job required both a degree and years of experience. Throughout the dinner, similar jabs continued. Comments about my simple lifestyle questions, about when I might move up in my career, and surprised reactions when I demonstrated knowledge about topics they considered beyond my perceived intellectual reach. Jordan remained silent during these exchanges, occasionally shooting me apologetic glances, but never defending me. The brother who I had stood up for countless times could not return the favor even once. What they did not know was what I had in my coat pocket. For the past 6 months, I had been putting in overtime and saving every penny I could. I researched wedding venues that would impress even Amanda's family, finally finding and securing a deposit at Lakeside Gardens, one of the most sought-after wedding venues in the Pacific Northwest. I had also contracted an award-winning photographer whose work had been featured in national wedding magazines. On top of that, I had saved $5,000 in cash as a starting fund for their wedding expenses. All told, this gift had cost me nearly $15,000, money that had been earmarked for a down payment on my own house. But Jordan was my brother, and I wanted him to know that despite everything, I would always be there for him. As dessert was served, I decided it was time. I cleared my throat and stood up, holding my glass of water for an impromptu toast. "Jordan, we have been through a lot together," I began, emotion thick in my voice. "From the darkest days after Mom passed to celebrating your college graduation. I know things have been different lately, but I wanted to show you how much you still mean to me." The table fell quiet as I reached into my jacket and pulled out an elegant envelope. "I wanted to give you both something special to start your new life together." I handed the envelope to Jordan, whose confusion turned to shock as he opened it and saw the contents. Inside was a card explaining that I had paid the deposit for Lakeside Gardens, secured their photographer of choice, and included $5,000 cash to help with additional expenses. For a brief moment, the table was impressed. Even Amanda's father raised his eyebrows appreciatively. Jordan looked genuinely moved, staring at the card with wide eyes. "Connor, this is—" "I do not know what to say," he stammered. Then Amanda, who had been examining the venue brochure, leaned over to whisper something to Jordan, but her whisper was intentionally loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. "Wow. He is really trying to matter again." The silence that followed was deafening. Jordan's face flushed red, but he said nothing, just stared down at the tablecloth. Amanda's family exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others barely concealing smirks. In that moment, everything crystallized for me. Every sacrifice I had made for Jordan flashed through my mind. Skipping my own prom to work extra shifts so he could have a proper graduation gift. Postponing my own education so he could finish his. The countless nights I had stayed up, worrying about him, supporting him, believing in him. And here he sat silent, as this woman belittled not just my gift, but my very place in his life. Something broke inside me. Then a dam of emotions I had been holding back for months. The realization that the brother I had given everything for no longer existed. He had been replaced by someone who measured his worth through Amanda's eyes, someone who could sit silently while she wounded me so publicly. I felt a calm clarity wash over me, the kind that comes only when you finally see a truth you have been avoiding for too long. Without a word, I reached across the table and took the envelope back from Jordan's limp hands. His eyes finally met mine, confusion and a hint of panic crossing his face. "Connor, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I slipped the card back into my coat pocket, stood up, and straightened my jacket. The entire table watched in stunned silence. "Let me try less," I said, simply, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. I turned and walked out of the restaurant without looking back, ignoring Jordan's calls behind me. Once in my car, I sat for a moment, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Then, with a deep breath, I took out my phone and made 2 calls. The first was to Lakeside Gardens. "This is Connor Harrington. I need to cancel the reservation under Jordan Harrington and Amanda Porter for July 15th. "Sir, you understand the deposit is non-refundable at this point," the manager asked. "I understand. Please call the bride directly to inform her of the cancellation. Her number is on the contract." The second call was to the photographer, explaining the same. Both were professionally regretful but understood. Within 10 minutes of leaving the restaurant, Jordan and Amanda's perfect wedding venue and photographer were gone. I was halfway back to Portland when my phone exploded with notifications. First came the text messages from Jordan. "What the hell, Connor? The venue just called Amanda. You cannot do this. Call them back, right now. Answer your phone." Then Amanda's texts started coming through. "How dare you embarrass me like this? Do you know who my family is? Jordan is devastated. Is that what you wanted? The deposit was $5,000. We cannot afford to lose that." That last text caught my attention. Could not afford to lose it. According to Jordan, Amanda's family was covering most of the wedding costs. Something did not add up. When I got home, I turned off my phone and poured myself a drink. I needed space to think, to process what had happened and what I had done. Part of me felt guilty for the impulsive reaction, but a stronger part knew it was long overdue. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. Jordan stood on my porch, unshaven and wild-eyed. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded, pushing past me into the living room. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" "I think I do," I replied calmly. I stopped letting myself be used and disrespected. It was just a comment, Connor. People say things they do not mean all the time. Was it just a comment? Because from where I stand, it was the truth about how you and Amanda see me now. The brother who sacrificed everything for you does not exist anymore in your eyes. I am just the construction worker trying to matter again to his successful younger brother. Jordan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "You do not understand. Amanda's family is not actually paying for anything. They talked big, but when it came time to actually contribute, they pulled back. Said we needed to prove our financial responsibility first. And you did not think to tell me this before I spent $15,000 on a gift?" I asked incredulously. "I was embarrassed, okay," Jordan shouted. "Amanda told everyone her parents were helping. We have been maxing out credit cards trying to keep up appearances. We are 3 months behind on rent. I did not want you to know how bad things were." The revelation hit me hard. My brother had been drowning, and instead of reaching out to me, he had pretended everything was fine while allowing his fiancée to treat me like dirt. "So all this time, you let Amanda and her family look down on me while you were secretly broke. You let her humiliate me at that dinner after I gave you everything I had saved. I know it looks bad." Jordan said, his voice smaller now. "She just gets insecure about money. Her family expects certain things and she does not want to disappoint them." "And what about disappointing me?" I asked quietly. "What about standing up for me when her family made those comments? What about being honest with me about your situation instead of letting me think you were doing great while you needed help?" Jordan had no answer for that. He just stood there, shoulders slumped in defeat. "She controls everything, now does not she?" I pressed. "What you wear, where you live, who you talk to. When was the last time you called Dad? Do you even know he had surgery last month?" The shock on Jordan's face told me he did not. "I think you should leave," I said finally. I cannot help someone who will not help themselves. And I definitely cannot support a relationship built on lies and disrespect. Connor, please, Jordan begged. I need you. We can fix this. No, Jordan. For once, I need to put myself first. When you decide to be my brother again, the real you, not Amanda's version, then we can talk. Until then, I wish you luck. You are going to need it. I opened the front door, signaling the end of the conversation. Jordan hesitated, tears in his eyes, before walking out. As I closed the door behind him, I felt something simultaneously breaking and healing inside me. For the first time in my life, I had chosen my own well-being over my brother's, and despite the pain, it felt right. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I alternated between fierce conviction that I had done the right thing and crushing guilt that I had abandoned my brother when he needed me most. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied and rebuild my savings. 2 months after the engagement dinner incident, Dad called with news. Jordan and Amanda broke up, he said without preamble. He moved out of their apartment. He is staying with a friend from work for now. I absorbed this information, silently conflicted about how to feel. He is too proud to call you, Dad continued. But I thought you should know. Later that week, I heard from mutual friends that Amanda had been telling everyone Jordan was financially irresponsible and had ruined their wedding plans. Meanwhile, Jordan had finally admitted to friends that Amanda had been controlling and isolating him from family. The truth was coming out piece by uncomfortable piece. As spring turned to summer, I began the process of healing. I started seeing a therapist who helped me recognize the unhealthy patterns in my relationship with Jordan, how my need to protect him had sometimes enabled his dependence on others. I joined a recreational basketball league, made new friends, and even started dating again after years of putting my personal life on hold. For the first time, I was building a life that was not defined by being Jordan's brother or the responsible one. I was just Connor, discovering what made me happy on my own terms. 8 months after our falling out, I received a text from Jordan. Can we talk coffee at River's Edge next Saturday at 10 a.m.? I stared at the message for a long time, before replying with a simple, I will be there. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived. Jordan was already seated in a corner booth, looking both familiar and different. He had lost weight, cut his hair shorter, and dressed more like the Jordan I remembered before Amanda in a simple flannel shirt and jeans. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down across from him, 2 steaming cups already on the table. I got you black coffee. You still take it that way, I nodded, surprised he remembered. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before Jordan spoke. I was wrong. About everything. About Amanda. About how I treated you, about the person I was becoming. I am sorry, Connor. More sorry than I can ever express. The words I had waited months to hear still felt insufficient, but they were a start. What happened, I asked. After we broke up, I had to face how much I had changed. Jordan explained. Amanda had me convinced that your influence was holding me back, that I needed to elevate myself above my upbringing. I was so desperate to fit into her world that I lost sight of who I really was and who really cared about me. He told me how after moving out, he had hit rock bottom living on a friend's couch, drowning in debt from the lifestyle Amanda had insisted they maintain. I had to take a second job just to start paying it all off. Funny thing is, I am happier now working 2 normal jobs than I ever was trying to pretend I was something I am not. And Amanda, I asked, though I cared less about her than about my brother's well-being. Last I heard, she is dating some investment banker. Poor guy. Jordan attempted a smile. But the important thing is, I finally see clearly now. You were always there for me, and I threw that away for someone who only valued what I could provide for her image. I sat with his apology, neither accepting nor rejecting it immediately. Part of me wanted to forgive him instantly, to fall back into our old relationship. But the wiser part, the part that had grown through therapy and self-reflection, knew that real healing would take time. I am not ready to pick up where we left off, I said honestly. But I am willing to start rebuilding. Slowly. Relief flooded Jordan's face. That is more than I deserve. Thank you. Over the following months, Jordan and I cautiously reconstructed our relationship. We started with occasional texts, then weekly coffee meetups, and eventually dinners with Dad. I watched my brother work hard to pay off his debts and rebuild his own identity. He transferred to a different department at his company, one where he could advance based on merit rather than connections. The journey was not always smooth. There were moments when old patterns threatened to re-emerge, when Jordan looked to me to solve his problems or when I was tempted to step in and fix things for him. But we were both committed to creating a healthier, more balanced relationship. A year after our reconciliation, Jordan helped me move into my new house, the one I had finally saved enough to buy after rebuilding my finances. As we unpacked boxes in the kitchen, he paused, holding a framed photo of us as kids. "I never properly thanked you," he said quietly, "for everything you sacrificed for me growing up. I took it for granted." "You do not need to thank me," I replied. "Just live your life authentically. That is all I ever wanted for you." What I learned through this painful experience was that true love sometimes means setting boundaries, even with the people we care about most. My worth was never determined by how much I gave or sacrificed for others. Sometimes the most valuable gift is not what you give to others, but what you finally allow yourself to keep: your dignity, your peace, and your truth. If my story resonated with you today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for your own well-being? Share your experience in the comments below, and remember that choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey helps you navigate your own with more courage and self-respect.